Next topic for our algebra unit is going to be inequalities. And an inequality is basically a number sentence that does not have an equal sign in it. So normally you would have an equal sign showing that both sides are equal. That's not what our goal is here. Our goal is to figure out which side is maybe bigger or bigger than, smaller than, or equal to. So in order to do this, it's really helpful to, first of all, know what the symbols are, and a couple of them are going to be pretty familiar to you, and a couple of them are probably going to be new. Knowing what the symbols are, and then we're going to, at the end today, we're going to be able to graph different solutions of these, and eventually we are going to solve these like we would solve a normal equation. So my first two symbols right here, greater than or less than, you guys are very familiar with these. I want to make sure though that with these number sentences that you have, that you can read them from left to right, and as you read them, if they make sense, then I just put a little yes by here, meaning that would be true, and if it doesn't make sense, I just put a little no by it. So for example, if I read this straight across, how this would read, 4 is greater than 2. 4 is greater than 2, so that's true. 6 is greater than 10. That is not true. Moving over here, the less than sign. 8 is less than 14. It is. We got to be able to read these straight across, how they come off on the paper or on the screen. 6 is less than 3. It's not. Now the other two symbols kind of introducing to you are, this one is greater than or equal to. Okay, the or is key here. This symbol means that the number can be bigger than the other number, or it can also be equal to. So if I come down here to the example, 6 is greater than or equal to 3. Yes. 8 is greater than or equal to 8. It is. 8's not greater than 8, but when we have that or equals part, then that works out just fine. And then down here, 5 is greater than or equal to 7. That doesn't satisfy any. 5's not bigger than 7, or 5's not equal to 7. And just the opposite over here, less than or equal to. First example, 14 is less than or equal to 20. Yes, it is. 9 is less than or equal to 9. It is, because it has the or equals part. And then this one does not work. 10 is less than or equal to 6. We are going to be drawing graphs for these different inequality situations. They're going to start out pretty simple, but they're starting out simple for a specific reason. We've got to be able to read and understand these before we do any part of solving them. So here's just a quick set of directions that we're going to use. Eventually you'll get comfortable with this, and these directions are just kind of like second nature. The first thing I always like to do, and this is the part that a lot of people don't like to do, but I think this really helps to visualize. I like to create a small set of numbers that work with the inequality. And what I mean by work with the inequality is that make it true. So I usually come up with about 3 or 4 numbers that make it true, because then it makes it easier to graph and write it, because I know what kind of numbers I'm looking for. Make a rough number line. That's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you how to make a rough number line. And then here's a key. On our number line, we are going to want an open circle if the number that we're talking about is not included, like it does not work. Okay, and I'll show you what this means in a minute. We're going to want a closed circle on our number line if the main number that we're talking about does work with the inequality. And you'll find out that open circles are always the ones that don't have the or equal to. Closed circles are the ones that do have the or equal to, and you'll figure out why in a second here. Alright, here are some situations. We are going to graph these situations. Here's the thing that I always like to start off with. I did mention it on the other thing, but I think it makes a lot of sense. This is x is greater than -4. -2 is less than or equal to x. -100 is less than x. X is greater than or equal to 15. I find this very, very easy when you have the missing number first. I think that really makes this easier, but I want you to be able to write it both ways. So I'm going to leave this one how it is, and I'm going to leave this one how it is. I'm going to flip this around. Okay, I'm going to write it like this because I think it's easier to understand. Same thing with this. I'm going to flip it around. You want to make sure it's the same thing, though. You want to make sure that the symbols are facing the numbers in the same way, meaning that like on this one I flipped it around so the alligator mouth is still eating the X, and it's still eating the X over here, and same thing. The alligator mouth still eating the X, still eating the X here. Now we're going to graph these. Before we do that, we're going to write down numbers that work in the situation. Okay, so I'm just going to write 3 numbers that are going to make this true. Okay, X is greater than -4. Okay, so we need numbers greater than -4. So maybe -3, maybe 0, maybe 5. Okay, those are all greater than -4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here. I'm going to draw a number line, and this is going to be a very, very rough number line. You're not going to spend days making this perfect. All we're going to include is we're going to include this main number in the middle of our number line. Okay, and a lot of people write these different, but I find this is about the easiest way to do it. And then I'm just going to put the numbers around it that go around it. So -5 would be the left, -3 would be here. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to start in the middle at the -4, and I'm going to point in the direction that includes all these numbers that you wrote right here. Okay, all these numbers would be in that direction. Now I'm going to put a circle here too. And I am either going to keep the circle open, meaning -4 does not count in this, or I'm going to fill it in saying that -4 does count. And if I come up here, if I did put a -4 right here, you just have to ask yourself, do I need to count that? Would that work? Is -4 greater than 4? It's not, so I'm going to leave this circle open, meaning that -4 is not included, but anything going in this direction will work for that X. Let's try the next one. First off, I flipped this around so the X is first. I need to come up with 3 numbers that I know are going to work for this. Okay, let's see. I need X can be greater than or equal to 2. Okay, well, I can start with 2 right away because 2 is greater than or equal to 2. Let's see, bigger than 2, 5, 10. Okay, it doesn't matter what you put as long as it works for this situation. So I'm going to come down here for my number line. Again, we're not going to spend a lot of time making the number line fancy. We're going to put that number in the middle, 2. I'm going to put the numbers around it. They go around it. 1 would be here, 3 would be here. I'm going to start with my arrow. I need my arrow to include 5 and 10. Okay, and 2 is going to be included in that closed circle, but we'll worry about that in a little bit. 5 and 10 would be this way. And then with my circle, I'm going to want to fill that in. Because if I put the number 2 right here, 2 is greater than or equal to 2. That is a true number sentence, so I want to make sure I include the 2 there. Next set. I need to come up with 3 numbers that are going to work for this. And I flipped it around. I think it makes it a lot easier. X is greater than -100. I need numbers greater than -100. So greater than -100, -88, 7, 50. Those are all greater than -100. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here. I'm going to draw my number line. I'm going to put my -100 right here. I'm going to put the numbers around it that would go around it. So let's see, -100 would go there. So on the right would be -99. On the left would be -101. Now I'm going to draw the arrow in the direction that all these numbers that I wrote are in. All these numbers are to the right. Circle. Does -100 work here? If I put -100 here, -100 is greater than -100. That does not work, so I don't want to include -100 in here. So I'm going to leave that circle empty, and there's my solution. Anything pointing in this direction will work or will satisfy or will make this true. Last one. I'm going to start with 3 numbers again. Give me 3 numbers that work for this. Okay, and again, you've got millions of choices. I mean, trillions of choices here. as many choices you can think of, basically, as long as it is greater than or equal to 15. So I'll say 17, 20, and 100. I'll draw my number line. I want to make sure 15 is in the middle. Let's get the numbers around it that belong around it. 16 would be here. 14 would be here. Let's point the direction. Which direction from the middle is 17, 20, and 100? That would be this way. 17 would be over here, 20 would be over here, 100 would be way over here. Put my circle in here. Do I want to include the 15? Just depends if it's true or not. If I put a 15 here, does that make sense? 15 is greater than or equal to 15. 15 is greater than or equal to 15, so I'm going to fill in that circle. This number line just tells me that everything in this direction and the number 15 will work for this example here. All right. I want you to try to do these on your own here. I would recommend that you flip them around if the X is not first. I think that makes it a lot easier to read. Test these out on your own, see how you do. Pause this video and then come back and check your and then over here let's see, we'll put the X first. It's going to go in this direction because the alligator mouth is eating the negative 52 if I want to use the kindergarten term there. Now I've got my numbers correct. All I wanted to do for each one of these is write numbers that might work for this. So for X is less than or equal to negative 5, so I need less than negative 5, negative 10, negative 20. I'll just put a couple numbers. That should give you enough of an idea of if you're on the right track or not. Okay. Number line, I'm going to put negative 5 right in the middle. I'll put the other numbers right around it. Negative 4 needs to be down here because this is closer to the positive. This is further away from 0. So I'm going to make my line here so I get these numbers included. That's going to be in this direction. Now I need a circle. And it looks like if I put negative 5 in here, I want to include it because negative 5 is less than or equal to negative 5. So I definitely want to include that in there. So that would be my answer to this one. For this one up here, numbers that would work. I just need something that's less than 11. Piece of cake, 10, 9. That's less than 11. We'll draw our number line. I'll put 11 right in the middle. Put the numbers around it that would belong around it. I'll draw my arrow in a direction that hits these numbers. 10 and 9 are over here. And then I need a circle. I believe I'm going to leave this one empty because if I put 11 up here, 11 is not less than 11. So I'm going to leave that one empty. Going down to the bottom left-hand corner. Numbers that will work for this, I need less than or equal to negative 1. So we could go negative 3, we could go negative 10. Those are less than or equal to negative 1. So I'll put my number line on here. Going to put negative 1 right in the middle. 0 would be there. Negative 2 would be there. I want to make sure that whatever direction I draw this arrow, it's hitting these numbers. And of course, negative 3 and negative 10 are going to be over there. I'll put my circle on there. If I put negative 1 in here, does it make sense? Negative 1 is less than or equal to negative 1. It is less than or equal to negative 1, so I want to include this. So the solution of this is negative 1, or anything to the left of negative 1 would make sense with this equation. Last one. Numbers that work for this. X is less than negative 52. Okay, I need an X is less than negative 52 here. X is less than negative 52. Let's go negative 100, negative 200. That would be fine. Those are both less than negative 52. Get my number line on here. Get negative 52 right in the middle. So I'd have negative 51 and negative 53. And what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to draw in the direction of these, which would be this way. And my circle would be filled in. Actually would not be filled in here, because if I put negative 52 here, in either one of these, because they're both the same, we just flip-flop them around, negative 52 is not less than negative 52. So we want an open circle for that.